Hello, welcome back to my studio. In today's painting, we're painting a sweet little bluebird. I'm using Meeden's watercolor paper. It's cold pressed, 100% cotton, size 7 inches by 5 inches. This is a 20 sheet cold press block of paper. It's 300 GSM or 140 pound, and it's gummed down on all 4 sides except this little bit here so that you can remove the paper. The paintbrushes I'm using today are a number 0, or you could do maybe number 1 or 2, but the smallest paintbrush you have for the detail. And then a number 8 paintbrush. It could be a 6, an 8, a 10, just something a little bit bigger for the branches in the background. And then a number 4 paintbrush, or another small paintbrush, but not quite as small as your detail paintbrush. So for the colors for this painting, we're using Cadmium Free Red, Lamp Black, French Ultramarine Blue, Phthalo Blue, and Raw Umber. If you don't have these same colors, that's okay. You can use something similar. So the first thing I'm going to do for this is make a lot of little watery washes. And to do that, I'm putting water on my brush and filling up each little spot. So I'm filling each little spot with a little puddle of water where a paint is going to be, where a color is going to be. And then dipping my brush into that paint and making a nice lighter version of that color. For this painting, we're going to want to move from super light washes to a more intense version of the color as we go. So it's a good thing to start with your lightest version, your lightest washes first. So here we have the French Ultramarine Blue, the Phthalo Blue, or Phoenix Blue as it's called in this set. It's a nice light shade of French Ultramarine, nice light shade of Phthalo Blue or Phoenix Blue, and a nice light shade of Cadmium Free Red. Next we have the Raw Umber. Here's the Lamp Black. There we go. And for this part right here, I'm going to take a little bit of that red, some of that Raw Umber, mix it up. So we have a nice mix where it looks a little more on the browny, yellowy side than it does the red. And I'm going to put just a little bit right into the red as well. And I have the printable outline available, so I'll put that in the description. If you're on YouTube, if you're on Facebook, I'll put it in the comments. Put a link to it so you can print it out and trace it. So once we have our bird all set up, sketched out, ready to go, I'm going to take my kneaded eraser and lighten my drawing. I really like to stamp my drawing lines, but you can also roll your kneaded eraser across your page and lighten up the lines that way as well. I know a lot of artists do it that way. So for the color of the eye, I'm going to take a little bit of the black and a little bit of the blue. We're going to go in with a light color first, and I'm going to leave just that little area that I drew in. I'm going to leave that white. Okay, so here you see up close how we have put the blue light blue in. Go ahead and make it a little bit darker. And I'm going to bring in that blue around to leave just a little dot of bright white in the eye. So some of the highlight will be blue and some of it will be white. And I'm going to make sure to leave some white area right around the eye. So we're painting a circle in that light phthalo blue around the eye, leaving an area of white, leaving that white area right there. So I'm going to be painting around that light area, super, super light, making sure that that area right around the eye is left white. So using my teeny tiny brush and just painting very close to it, but leaving a tiny bit of white, especially on that left hand side of the eye. Dipping into that light wash, we are going to be using, or I'm going to be using my number 4 brush and dabbing this very light wash kind of in feathery strokes. And you can go back over the area we already painted, it's fine too. And just leave little bits of white here and there, painting in your feathery little strokes. We'll be letting this layer dry and going over it with a new layer. So don't worry too much about what the strokes look like. Just try to have them go in the direction that the feathers of the bird would go, which are kind of a curve along the head. Go. And let's see, I do want to leave some white there. All right, so we have our feathery brush strokes. Little bits of white left here and there. If you forget to leave a little bit of white, you can pick it back up with a paper towel and leave at least a lighter area. All right. So now we have our little start of our bird's face, or the head. And then we're going to leave a little bit of white here. This area right underneath will be in shadow. All the way up to right underneath the beak. Just little feathery strokes. And then we'll have a little bit of the wing showing, or the back of the head, I should say, showing here. And then coming down, and you have a little bit of the wing. So again, just those little strokes. So I think we'll stop there with the blue. While we're waiting for that to dry, we can put in the tree branches. To make the wash for the tree branches, we're going to be using that wash of black and mix it in with a bit of blue, whichever blue you want is fine, and that will give us a very pale gray. I think that's a very nice light gray. And we're going to start with the branches that are behind this initial branch. Load up our brush. Oops. It's actually what I wanted, the size 8 brush. Use our size 8 brush. We'll load up our brush because these are a bit thicker branches. And we're going to follow, making sure it's thicker at the top. It can be a bit bumpy. We're going to follow that branch. Go. And as we pull the watercolor, you can see it is getting lighter, but to make sure it's getting lighter, I will dip my brush in the water, and you can lighten up your wash, or you can just dip your brush in your water and then go in to the branch and keep pulling that gray along so it gets lighter as you go. And then pull up on your brush so that you're using more of the tip of the brush. Oh, a little too much water on my paintbrush. I need to dab the water onto a paper towel. Get some of that off. Now you're using just the tip of the brush to make sure the branches are getting thinner as you go. Oops. And if you mess up like I just did, can pick up that watercolor. Before this dries completely, we're going to go ahead and put the gray with, there we go, put the gray in for the branch that our bird is sitting on. Just going to go right over his feet. And I need to add a bit more color to my wash. I actually forgot the white highlight that I was going to have. So picking up the color where I want the highlights, and make sure to leave some white. Okay, so I have darker gray. Put a highlight there so I won't paint into that. And then I'll have another highlight up here. Highlight up here, I'll paint around it. And then the gray going off to the distance. I think I'll also add a little bit of our raw umber to the branch while it's still wet, just to give it a little bit of warmth, dabbing that color in. And then I'm going to wait until the super light washes are dry to put in more color for the main branch. And while I'm waiting on that, I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit more color to the branch behind it. A little bit of the darker wash first, and then wiping off my brush and wipe it off and get a little bit of water. Pull down that color. Adding a little more water to the wash. It's barely visible. For the little tiny branches, I'm using the tip of the brush. Just keep going with these little branches. Make this as simple or as intricate as you like. going to put in some more of the details onto the bird. It's the raw umber and the cadmium free red. Try it out first. Here we go, that's nice. Okay, so once you have your wash the color you would like it, so this is our lightest that we're going to be using, the lightest wash of the red we're going to be using. And we're going to be making feathery little marks, leaving some white areas between the blue and where the red is. So you want to leave some white in between your brush strokes here and there. And this is going to be our lightest color, this area. And we'll build up slowly using a bit more pigment in our wash. You want a few little feathery brush strokes for the fluff coming out there. And this blue here actually will have red on top of it. We'll go ahead into our darker wash of the red and just dab it in a little bit right under the beak. And it will be on top of that blue a bit. Make sure your blue is dry before you put the red on top of it. Just a couple little strokes. All right. Go ahead and wait for this to dry. While we're waiting for that to dry, we can put the shadow that's down here, down below. So we're going to be using that same gray blue that's on the branch for our initial shadow bits. And we want to paint it in feathery strokes, leaving little bits of white here and there. Here we go. So I just washed my brush and now I'm making feathery strokes with just water to give it a very soft effect. And I'm stopping before I hit the red for now, the red wash, as it's still very, very wet, but just giving us our initial idea. We'll go ahead and wait for our initial strokes to dry there and put a bit more color into the branch now that the branch is dry. So we can put some more black into the branch and some more blue, maybe a little more brown. So we're going to take again a pale wash. This is the blue and the black together. We're going to leave a bit of that lighter area as a highlight. And you want your branches that are underneath to be dry at this point. Hopefully mine are dry enough. I should have checked. But we're pulling that gray along the branch. I'm going to go around that highlight area up there as well. I'm just going right over where the little feet are going to be. Then it gets lighter and lighter as we go. So I'm going to rinse out my brush, tap it down a little bit on my paper towel, and then pull the color that's left out to the end. And then add a little bit of the raw umber. A little too much water on my brush, there we go. Then I'm going to take a little bit of blue and add some more blue to the wash and just dab it in here and there. I'm going to add a little bit of that ultramarine blue wash as well. Just dab that here and there, this darker area. And along the branch, just to give it some interest. All right, so the initial light washes have all dried. So using the wash of French ultramarine blue, I'm going to add in more blue feathers. Being careful to leave some lighter or white areas here and there. This again is just a very, very light wash. Just building up that color gradually. Using just little strokes. All right, so then I'm going to let that second layer of blue dry. And put some of that same blue as a shadow right underneath the bird. I'm going to add some more color to this as well. So to add more color, I'm going to tap right into that blue, come to the center or wherever you have space in your palette, and mix it in with a bit more gray. And then add that to wherever you want a little more shading on your branch. I'm going to use some of the black right straight from the pan and darken up this a little bit more. Dabbing that black into the branch. Bring it around a bit here too. Just to give it a little more shading. And you can dab black directly from the pan as well if you want it to be darker. I don't think I want it quite that dark, so I'm going to dry off my brush and pick some of that back up with my brush. Might move it around just a little bit too. Okay, I might have it a little bit too dark, so I'm picking it back up a bit with my paper towel, just a little bit. All right, so I do want this to be a darker, brighter version of what it is now. To do that, I'm going to take a little bit more of that Phoenix blue, more Phoenix blue in the mix, and I'm going to dab it off onto my towel a little bit. So I want it to be darker, a bit around the eye. Using just the tip of my larger brush, but you can use a smaller brush for this. And again, I'm going to just make little feathery strokes. I'm going to pick up a little bit more, tap it off, a little more into wing area, feathery strokes. And I'm following the painting that I did earlier, but it's not going to look exactly like it, which is fine. It'll look similar, but not exact. So while we're waiting for that to dry, we can put a little bit more of the shading underneath the bird. So for that, I'll use a little bit of my red, a little bit of the gray, a little bit of that blue. And I'm going to put in feathery strokes to give it that fluffy look down at the bottom. You can use your bigger brush. I'm using the size 8. You could use the size 6, or you could use your teeny tiniest brush if you'd like for this. So now I'm dabbing the paint off of my brush. I rinsed it off and lightening up some of the areas just a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and let that dry. So I'm going to add a little bit more of the red to my red wash. It's a bit darker. And then I'm going to add a little bit more of the raw umber to the red. If you don't have raw umber, you can use a different brown that can just kind of tone down your red a little bit. And then I will check to make sure that it is the color I want it to be. Which, yes, I think that will be very nice for the second layer of red. And I'm using, again, my size 8 Neptune round, but you can use whatever size you're comfortable with for this part. And I'm going to be making the feathery marks, just little red ones here underneath the blue area, and then a little bit more underneath the beak and underneath the eye. fluffy. And a little bit more water for this part. And I'm going to make some more feathery areas. Making feathery brush strokes. So now, as we're going down the bird's body, we're going to lighten it up a bit. So I'm using a bit of that brown and red wash, and I'm going to add a bit of that just brown by itself wash, but you can just add a little bit of water, or just tap into the brown, add a little bit more of that golden brown to that red. And I'm going to make just a little bit more of a feathery wash going here and there. So you don't want to cover up all that white. All right, I think that's looking fluffy. And we'll go in with our third layer of that reddish in just a little bit. Let's see, I don't know if I did as good of a job on this one. Oops, I'm gonna wipe off my brush a bit. As I did on the original with the fluffiness factor, but I think it still looks pretty darn cute. All right. Sometimes when I'm filming, I'll get a little bit nervous, and so things don't quite flow as well as they do when I originally paint. And you can go ahead with your paper towel and pick up areas just to lighten them up a little bit more. Make sure we keep that fluffy look. Let's go ahead and add a little bit more of a blue shadow to the tree. And for this, I'm going to use more of the two blues. So this is the French Ultramarine blue. And I'm going to add that into the shadow. If you want to make it look smooth, you want to make sure to get the whole area wet. So you're adding the color. And then I'll rinse off my brush, dab it on the paper towel, and add a little bit of that Phoenix blue or Phthalo blue, just to make that shadow a little bit more blue right underneath our furry friend. And I think that will do. All right, so it kind of looks like if the sun is, well, it looks a bit of a cloudy winter day or a cloudy spring day perhaps, but it gives it just a little bit of shadow, makes it look a little bit three-dimensional. And then if you want to add a little bit more shading to the branch, you can come into the black, dab it on the paper towel a little bit, and you can add more of a line of shading if you would like. If you want it to be less of a line and more of a smooth gradient, you wet the whole area. And then where that water touches the black, it will bring it up into it. And you can dab it in as well if you want a little more. Go. You can control where it bleeds into the branch by drying off your brush and then soaking back up little areas, but I'm just going to let it do its thing. We're gonna take this blue gray, but more blue, and paint over it with a more gray. So that the only part that's still really blue, or looks more blue, is right there in that bit of highlight. So there's like a little triangle almost right here. And in it, you have the bright white of the paper, and you have a little bit of just light blue. So we'll let that dry. And while that's drying, we can go ahead and paint in our beak. Dab it off on a paper towel so there's not as much on the brush. I'm going to paint along the bird's beak, going along my light pencil lines. And then the very tip will have some shading, as well as the underneath. And then there's a little bit of shading here as well, of darker gray right there. On the underside, I need to put a little bit more, and it'll be a little bit darker. I'm going to dab my brush into my black just a little bit more. You can wait till it's dry, and then go along the line of the beak. You can wait till it's dry, and then go over with another coat. I might outline the top of the beak with a little bit of gray as well. And there we go. So now we're ready for a little more shading, which we can make more of our red mixed with just a touch of the brown wash, mostly just the red wash, just a touch of that brown, and we'll try it off on try it out on our paper to maybe just a little bit darker. Just mix it until you're happy with the color. I'm going to do a little bit more, the darker, right underneath the beak. Then a little bit more shadow here and there with that dark red to accentuate that lighter fluffy area. I have a little bit too much water at my brush, so I tap it on the paper towel and soak back up a little bit of that paint from the paper. To prevent having so much water on your brush, you can gently scrape it on the side of your palette or dab it on your paper towel. That way you can better control where you want your paint to go. I do really like it to be nice and watery and puddly sometimes, and other times I like more control over it. You can soak back up some of the color by taking a little piece of paper towel, and if you think you put too much down somewhere, you can take it back up off of your painting just a little bit. So I'm going to make just a little bit of a darker red brown. So we have the red, a bit of that brown, mix it up. It's nice and dark. And I'm going to add it just a little bit here on the side, just to give that bit of fluff, a bit of shadow, a little bit more definition. on the side there, and then just a little bit more underneath, just a tiny bit. So as we're letting that dry, you can go and put in the pupil. And you're going to put in a little circle. So I have my wash of French Ultramarine blue, and I'm going to put just a little bit right underneath the beak. And that's a lot of water. I'm going to dab off my brush, dry it off, and pick back up some of that water. Here we go. I think that looks more like my original with a little bit of shading right underneath the beak. And then we can add more shading down here. Here I have dried up gray wash. I'm going to add some water, rejuvenate the wash, and add just a little bit of the red and a little bit of one of the blues. So it's a little bit purplish. And we're going to pull it up in feathery strokes. The area has dried, so now I'm mixing up a little bit more of a purpley color. So we have a little bit of gray, a little bit of blue, and a little bit of that red. We want it on the more bluer side of purple. A little bit more blue, a little bit of black. I'm going to tap it on the paper towel. I don't want to go up too far. I want to make the kind of back and forth feathery I don't want the shadow to be too blue, because that's not the color of the bird in this area. That's pretty good. I think I'll let that dry. A little bit of that Phoenix blue. I have just an area here. It's a little bit darker. Want a little bit of darker blue here and there going along that wing area. Let's see where else I might add a little bit more blue just around the beak. Okay, so we have the French Ultramarine blue. And we're going to put it around the eye a little bit. It swoops down around the eye. And then goes out. I think I went a little too dark. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wash off my brush. And then with just water, I'm going to soften this blue and kind of blend it into the head in the background. which I do like the look of. I'm not sad about that. Just kind of bring it all the way back. Here we go. And if I want to soften up more, I can use my paper towel and pick up some of the paint. I think I like that look. And add a little more shading this part of the face as well. Those feathery strokes. I think that's looking pretty cute, and you can see how it's not an exact science. There's a lot of mistakes that lead to maybe an even more fun or beautiful painting. Sometimes you just have to go with the flow. I'm just going to add a little bit more blue to the wing. So this is that French ultramarine blue, and I think it just needs a little bit of just a little bit more of a blue shadow here, or a blue pop of color here. So since the gray
next
on the
thing we're
other
going
side
to do is add just
dry, we want it
a little bit
be
more
about as
blue
dark as the shadow
to
under
the
there.
shadow
So I'm going to add some more of this
bottom of our
purplish
sweet little
gray.
bluebird. We're just going to put
Right
a little bit
that little bit
of extra shadow
right
just
the
right
very bottom of it.
there at the bottom. All right, so I think that's looking good. And then I can't really see the feet anymore, so let me draw these back in. Go in with a gray or a black, but I'll lighten them up and then just paint it in. Okay, so now we have the two little feet, a little more black, oops, a little more black for shading, and this brush is too dry. You can see how the point did not stay pointed. There we go, whoops. All right, so you don't want it too dry, or, well, oops, you don't want it too wet. Here we go. Put a little bit of shading on the feet. Or you could just paint them in black, not worry about that. You could use Payne's gray, or any other black would work too. All right. Okay, so now we have our sweet little bluebird. It's looking pretty well finished. If you'd like to share your version with me, I would love to see your work. I'm on Facebook and Instagram. I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you next time.